Good afternoon, everybody. We're just waiting a few minutes while people join the room, so we will commence the webinar in roughly 1 minute. Good afternoon, everybody. You're all extremely welcome to this evening's webinar. So on behalf of the Tralee, Clare, Navan and Monaghan Education Centre, we'd like to welcome you to this evening's webinar. This evening's webinar will be presented by Melissa Shine and will roughly last for about 40 minutes. If you have any questions for Melissa during this afternoon session, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, we'll commence this evening's webinar and I'll hand you over now to Melissa. Thank you.
So hi guys, and welcome to the webinar that I'm giving today, and it's looking at teaching without your laptop using your smart interactive panel. So the board that I'm using today is the MX series board, which has the 2 pens at the front. Some of the boards have the 4 different color pens, so it's kind of the same premise for all of them. They're all running on the same OPS in the background. So I'm just going to give you a little introduction. I'm Melissa. I'm a junior infant teacher in St. Paul's in Limerick, and I'm a smart ambassador. So what that basically means is that I would use smart a lot in my classroom and I would share it with my colleagues. My Twitter handle is @MJShine. So after the webinar, if you're doing anything got to do with smart, I would absolutely love if you shared it with me. That's kind of the idea with the smart ambassador, is that we promote using smart through what we're doing and just sharing of ideas, because there's a million different ways you can use it. So whatever you're using, I'd love if you shared it. We're going to do a quick overview of what we're going to do today. So we're going to explore the IQ. So the IQ is basically the built-in Android computer on the board. If you want to run your board without your laptop or without your computer or anything plugged into it, you have to be running it in the IQ. We're going to look at how to get writing immediately. So if you just wanted to pick up your pen, start using your smartboard as any normal whiteboard, how to do that really, really quick. And we're going to look at some extra features you can do other than just writing on it. We're going to look at how to share your whiteboard to the children's devices, whether it's a phone, a tablet, a laptop, Android or Apple, how to share whatever you have up on the board out to the individual devices, which is really popular lately because there's a lot more devices being bought for schools, considering everything with COVID. We're going to look at how to use the board as a browser, how to screen share. So if you have your own iPad, your own phone, anything at all, Android or Apple, how to cast from what's on your phone up to the board, and how to use your phone or your tablet as a visualizer. So if you wanted to show any of the kids' work or anything like that, you could bring it up on the board too. How to store your files and how to customize the board and make sure you're running on the most up-to-date software. So if there's any new features been added, that you would have access to them straight away. So, not yet, no questions yet. We're going to look at first at exploring the IQ. So as I said, the smartboards have their own built-in computers. They're Android, so if you want to imagine the smartboard just like a giant phone, anything you do on your phone, use apps, browse the web, even the features of how you use things, how you like zoom, which you pinch and you pull, things like that. It's really, really similar to that. And when you're in the IQ, you want to make sure to run from the IQ, you want to go to your input button, same as you'd have on a TV or anything like that. When you choose your input, you can either work in the OPS, which is the open pluggable slot. That is basically the input for using the Android computer. Just like on your home, if you want to use your DVD player, you'd select HDMI, or you want to use your computer in school, you'd select HDMI, but we're not going to look at that because obviously the webinar is on how to not use your computer. So you want to make sure you're running in the OPS, and that's how you access the Android computer. And there's a little bar down here, and that button will always bring you to the home screen. My home screen looks like this because I have customized it. If you want to customize your board or you want to do anything on your board and have it kept there, you have to log in. So before you get started at all, I would say up here, there's a little tiny face. I just want to make sure that you're logged in. So you'll see here, I'm logged in as Miss Shine. It's really important that you're logged in because anything you do on the board will be saved. Any work, if you want to work at home on Smart Learning Suite Online, I'll show you a lot more about that later. But if you want to do any work at home and you want to send it directly to your board, you won't be able to access it unless you're logged in. So when you go to log in, it'll ask you to log in either via Microsoft or Google. So use the address that is matched to your school account for Smart. So when you subscribe to Smart, you get your notebook software that runs on your computer or your laptop. And you also have the Smart Learning Suite Online subscription, which allows you to work at home or work on the fly and create and share things to your board and access them anywhere. So little smiley face, just make sure you're logged in. And again, small little dot down the bottom. That brings me back home. So we're going to get looking at the whiteboard first, basically. So obviously, if you want a new whiteboard, you click the whiteboard button. It'll come up there on your home screen. It'll take a second. It's deciding to be much slower today. And so there's my whiteboard. I can literally pick up my pen and start writing. So if you just wanted to use your board simply as a whiteboard and nothing else, you could literally just pick up the pen, start writing. It will auto choose a color, as you can see here. Whereas if you have the other series of the boards that have the different color pens, they'll obviously write in that color. But if you want to write in a different color pen, over here you've got your pen tool function. And obviously you can just change between the different colors of your pens really simply. Change it to red, like that. So that's just a really simple way of changing the pen thickness, the pen color, and changing between highlighter as well, which is really useful. And I might show you some uses for the highlighters and for the pens later on as well. So that's just how to get writing immediately using it as a plain whiteboard. And like I said earlier, if you pinch and pull, just like on your phone, it's the same for zooming and zooming in and out. If you want to add a new page, there's a tiny little plus button here. Click plus, blank page, and you'll see I'm actually given options to have lines, dots, or like boxes for maths. I'd often use the lines for the junior infants, and again, because they're so small, I would often make the lines much bigger. And it's really handy to write in different pens. So if say we were doing our news, I wouldn't write in a highlighter. I would do our news. And it's very responsive with the pen as well. It's actually quite quick. There's no lag or anything like that. And I might change the color of my pen for when I'm going on to the next line. Today is whatever. So when I'm writing, I do things like that. If you wanted then, if you were doing any writing games on the board and you wanted to physically move your writing, under your pen tools, there's a capture tool. And using this, I can physically move the words around the board. So it's great for doing games, matching tricky words. If you wanted to do a game really quickly, you know, write up a couple of tricky words on the board, have the kids match them together, you know, pull the capture tool. It's really, really simple. So that's just if you're going to do any plain kind of writing. So I'm going to add another page here, just another blank page. And this time we're going to look at the next tool here on my whiteboard, which is adding some online content. So it's important to note that the online content is already safe searched. So you won't have to worry about anything inappropriate popping up or anything like that in the class. So once you click on the box, the on-screen keyboard pops straight up. So say you want to look up Egypt or whatever you were talking about, you could pull it up really quickly and it'll pull up images and it'll bring them up. And again, just like on your phone, to select them, you can just pinch and zoom, make them bigger and smaller. And you can also add video content and it will play within it. So YouTube videos, things like that, and they'll just play within the browser. So that's like another way to maybe use your whiteboard without having to go in and out of different features and going in and out of different pages. You can get the online content really, really quickly. The next thing we're going to look at, so I'm just going to add another page. I'm going to have a ton of pages by the end of this. We're going to look at, say, having a math page. So what's really handy about this is there are really cool widgets over here. So there's clocks, spinners, dice, timers, protractors, rulers. I'm going to show the ruler one here. So it's really great because I know like with some of the older classes, they'll be teaching their kids how to line the copies and things like that. So once the ruler's up on the board, I can just select it. I can select my red pen, and it's a really great way to teach the kids how to rule their board. You know, you can model bringing it across, things like that. Not a very good line as a model. And then if you click on it, you can bring it sideways and bring it over and line over here. So the widgets on it, they're really, really simple. They're really quickly accessible. The fourth button. So the first one is pens and tools, select and capture, add online content, and then the widgets. So some other nice widgets are like the clock. And it's really nice because you can manipulate the hands. So if you were teaching time, what other widgets are there? There is the dice. I don't want to move for me, but I can spin my dice, things like that. So play around with the different widgets because there's lots of different ones in it. After that, there is, once you click the plus button there, you'll see I've got some other options. I've just so far been going through blank page, and adding the different tools on the side. But there's actually tons of built-in tools within the adding the new page as well. So you can add a graphic organizer, like there's lovely ones there for brainstorming. You know, you can pull up super quick, write whatever you're studying on it and pull up those graphic organizers really, really fast. And there's some other lovely manipulatives, like this fraction one. And the kids can come up and do that. So you can either do it on the board, and in a few seconds, I'm going to show you how you can actually throw this out to the kids as an activity if they have their own individual devices. So the devices for the kids are far more common now that we found as well. There's a lot more like tablets and laptops in use in the classroom since we closed over the lockdown. And I was only talking to a teacher the other day, and we were talking about how, because of how we space the children out in the classroom, some of them don't have a great vision of the board. So we were saying if we had individual devices, we could cast us on the board onto their tablets or onto their laptops for if they were taking down any content or just wanted to be able to see a bit better. So what I'm going to do is I can go here when I click on this, and you can see I can go through all my pages that I've written so far. So I'm going to show you now how to share what's on your board to a device. So this will work on, as I said, Android computer, laptop, phone, anything at all. So I'm just going to use my iPad. So on my iPad, I just have to go on to Hello Smart on Safari. It's not an app. It's not anything that has to be downloaded or installed. I literally just Google hellosmart.com. And on my board up here, you can see there's two little people, and that's the sharing icon. And you can see it's so straightforward. It literally says, students go to hellosmart.com. And if you want to join Miss Shine's class, join as guest, and it asks for the class ID. So you can see it here. It'll just ask for the class's ID. And I fill in 580700. 580700. And I type in my name. And once I've typed in my name, whatever is up on the board will then cast to the tablet. So it just takes a couple of seconds to go across, and you'll see here, greetings, Mel, just waiting for a teacher to start the lesson. So you have to select start sharing before the kids can see any of the content that you have up on the board. And you can see here, oh, and Mark has joined. Hi, Mark. We have teacher and student led. So if it's on teacher led, the children will only see exactly what you have on the board on their tablet or on their computer. If you change it to student led, then the children can go back and forth through the different pages that we have over here. So if I want to share with the children and on teacher led, I say start sharing. And now you'll see here, whatever is on the board is now also on the tablet. So it's really handy as well, because I've got some kids that when we start taking down our news and things like that later in the year, they find it very hard to look at the board and look down at the copy and things like that. So it's a great visual to have right in front of them. And so the kids can go through it. And if I change it to student pace on my tablet, I can then go through all the different pages on the tablet as opposed to just sticking with what the teacher's showing us. And what's really nice is when I go to the manipulatives, I can actually turn it into an individual handout. So if I click turn into a handout, you'll see here now, it'll come up for me in a few seconds. On my tablet, whatever is on the board will show up here, and I'll actually be able to do the manipulative on the tablet as well as on the board. So really quickly to go over how to do that, you select your sharing. And you have it on teacher pacing, and you select the page you want to have it in. Should work. Yeah, and you'll see here it says start handout. So in a couple of seconds, the fraction wall that I had open will come up on the tablet as well. And the kids will be able to do the fraction wall themselves. So it just takes a couple of seconds to load. And then the kids will have full access to manipulating the fraction wall that you had actually up on the board. So that's really handy as well. So instead of, especially if we're not going to be sharing devices, and we don't want kids coming up to the board and sharing pens and things like that, if they do have their own individual devices, to be able to throw it out of the handout instead of them coming up individually. So as I said, select sharing, teacher paste, choose the page that you want to share and change it into a handout as opposed to just watching it. So you can see there it says this page is an individual activity. So that's just looking at how to share from the tablet. So sharing, hellosmart.com, kids enter the number that's on the board and they can automatically see once you choose to start sharing. If I want to stop sharing, I no longer want the kids to have what's on the board, they won't see it anymore. So that's sharing from your board. If I have time, I'll go back later and we'll look at maybe how to do a shout it out. That's kind of like sharing brainstorming ideas to the board, but I have a few other bits I'd like to get through first. So what I might look at now is the browser. So if I click on the home page, it's just there in my favorite apps. It's a browser, and as you can see, it's a Chrome browser. So this works just like any browser on your phone, on your computer, anything like that. Anything you can open in the browser on a computer, you can kind of open up on the browser on the IQ. It's worth noting that if you're opening files, which I'll show you in a few minutes on the IQ, you can only open PDF or Smart Files. So if you wanted to open a Word or a PowerPoint document, you'd have to go through the browser to do it. So when I go into the browser, you can see I have loads of tabs here already. You can literally go on to anything. So this is the Smart Learning Suite Online. This is what I was telling you about. If you were at home or you wanted to make any smart files on the fly or anything like that, you can do these at home and share them to your board. And I'll show you how they're shared to my board in my actual files. This is obviously opened in the browser, and you can see here they're just some smart files that I will be doing with the infants that I might make at home or save to my Smart Learning Suite, so I have access to them if I was to change classroom and have a new board and things like that. You can use it to open any kind of file. Like there, I have CJ Fallon open and I have my maths book. So if you were doing like the maths pages or anything like that with the infants, that you could pull the page up on the board. And again, you can save these as well. So the minute you start writing on this, you'll see a little green frame has come around the whole board, and I can choose what to do with it. I can choose, do I want to save it? Do I want to delete it? And once I've chosen whether to save it or delete it, when I'm in my files later, I have options to move it around and store it in better places. So if you click on the green X, it says you can save this, or so you can find it in your files library, or you can discard. So I'll just discard it. So that option to save will pop up the second that you turn on you write the pen on the board. Similarly, as well as opening web pages, you can see here I can go into my OneDrive. I can pull up any of my files that I've been using. I can open PowerPoint. You can again write over it, or you can edit within it. I can open PDF, a very apt one on hand washing, and I can open PowerPoint, and you'll see I have all the options to work away within PowerPoint as well. And the last one as well, you can open just a normal web page. And again, if you wanted to write over it, if you wanted to do a KWL chart and you wanted to save the file so you could access it later. So I'm just going to save it so I can show you where it is in a few minutes. So that's it, that's literally saved. Anything you write in it will kind of save automatically. That's basically it for the browser. Like I said, it works anything just like your phone. So if you want to Google anything, if you want to open a new web page, the minute that you click up here, the on-screen keyboard comes up. So what we might look at now is actually storing the files. So there are lots of different ways to store the files. When I come down here to the home button again, you'll see I've got my Files app. And when I click on that, I can either have my files stored to the board itself, to the Smart Learning Suite Online, or to a USB. Now, I have my USB plugged in at the front here. This is where some of the USB ports are on the MX series. I would suggest putting it in on there's more here on the side, because someone will knock off it and hit it and break it and you lose everything. So you can see here, there's tons of files here that are, these are all saved to my USB. So when I click here, I can choose what I'm going to do with any of these files. So the Smart Learning Suite files, you'll see they'll pop up here in a second. These would have been the ones that I showed you on the browser a few seconds ago. So anything that I had made at home or on the browser, I can access through the board, through the Files app. And similarly, I can go to my board files. So these are the files that I've made, and just when I opened up a whiteboard and just started writing on it. And I've made some folders. So if you want to make a folder to organize them, you just click the little plus here, and you can call the folder, just say, Cuelga. I've already got a folder called Cuelga. So you can just create the name of the folder and you can save your files into it. So as you can see here, that's actually the little penguin file that I had opened. Let it open for me. That I had written on a while ago as a board, and you can see it's just saved there kind of randomly. So if I wanted to save it, say into my SESE folder, just go back into my files, and I just click on it. And once I click on it, I'm able to drag it and put it into my folders. So if you wanted to keep the board slightly more organized, especially if there was content that you wanted to do and then maybe revisit another time, it's good because it can get populated really, really quickly. And it's important to have the settings turned on to make sure that you are going to actually save your files indefinitely, as opposed to if delete after a certain many weeks, because if you do delete them, there isn't actually a recovery process. So you will want to make sure that's switched on, and I'll show you that in the settings in a few minutes. The other option then is, as I said, I've got my Smart Learning Suite files, I've got the files saved on my board, and I've got my files on my USB key. The files in the USB key, as you see here, it will open the notebook files and it will open PDF files, but it's not actually recognizing some of the other ones. So if you did want to open a file, you'd have to go through your browser to open it if it wasn't PDF or wasn't a notebook. And you'll see there, it'll just click on it and it'll pop open any of my notebook files, just like you would have on the notebook on the computer. On the Smart Notebook software on your laptop. And to go through it, it's just like the other one. You just press the down arrows, and if you click the multiple files here, you can see all the different pages. This is actually quite a big document, so it'll probably take a few seconds to load. But like that, they'll all populate on down here on the side, and you can go down through them just like you would a normal notebook file. So the next thing we're going to look at is how to screen share from your device to the board. So I'm going to grab the iPad. So if you want to screen share from the iPad to the board, like earlier, there isn't a specific app that you have to use. So whether you're using Android or Apple, you can use just Screen Share or AirPlay that are built into them already, which is quite handy. But there is a smart app called Smart Screen Share, and that's a little bit more stable, just with regards to throwing your content from your tablet onto the board. So if you did want to screen share, maybe you wanted to hover over the kids' work and you wanted to bring their work and use it as a visualizer, or you just wanted to cast something up to the board, I'll show you how to do that now. So down here at the bottom, we have our Files tab, we have our Apps tab, which is like the browser, the whiteboard, and we have our Screen Share. So if I select Screen Share, it'll actually go through whether you're Apple, Android, Chrome, Windows, and it'll give you a tutorial as well. So if you weren't really sure how to do it, you could go through those as well. Or you'll see here there's a QR code. So there's different ways of doing it. On the iPad, when I drop down, I can just select screen mirroring, and it actually straight away found my class, Miss Shine, because we're both connected to the same network. So that's important that the device would have to be also on the same network as the board for it to mirror to it. So you can see here, I've got my tablets shared straight across. The other option is, you see the top corner there, there's smart screen. So if I was to stop mirroring, and open that app instead, the smart screen app on the tablet, it says enter IP address, or there's a little QR code scanner. So if I click on the QR code and I just hover it over it, it just connects automatically. And it says to share your screen, tap the button below, and it's just giving you a warning, I suppose, that whatever is on the tablet would be cast straight to the board. So you'll see there again, whatever's happening on my tablet will happen straight up on the board. So that's great if you wanted to take a picture, or if you wanted to maybe from your desk or from the back of the room, or if you're helping someone share content from your personal device, and that will work from a phone as well. Or if you wanted, as I said earlier as well, that if you wanted to use it as a visualizer. So from the camera, if you go into your camera function on it, you'll see there's my lovely shoes. I can actually hover over something. Take a picture of it, and it will be shared to the board. So, and if I wanted then, like earlier, if I wanted to write in it or do anything like that, I might take a straighter picture for us. And you'll see there like that, you can bring it up. And once I start to write on the board, you can see that it freezes like that. And so if you wanted to pull up a big book, put it on the board without having to be constantly emailing yourself pictures of things, you can just open the camera, take the picture, and the minute you draw anything on the board, it will save it. And like I said earlier, you have your pen tools over here. So I think maybe a good idea for like the highlighter is if you wanted to look for, you know, you were looking for different adjectives or verbs, they enter the letters out, you know, they had gone, things like this, you wanted to underline them, things like that. You can change the highlighter and change the pen for doing that as well. So to go through that really quickly again and show you how to actually screen share from it would just be, and you'll see here again, I have the option to save or discard. So I'm just going to discard it. And you can see I'm still screen sharing at the minute. So when you go back in, you can just stop broadcast. And then it goes back to that. So to screen share, you just literally click the screen share button and choose whether you want to just drag down from the top menu on your phone or your tablet and choose AirPlay or choose screen share, or to actually download the Smart Screen app. So the Smart Screen app, as I said, it is a little bit more stable. Sometimes for some reason, my AirPlay won't pick up the board. It usually does, but just in case it doesn't, it's handy just to have the app downloaded as well, but it's not necessary. So the next thing that we're going to look at is how to customize your board and how to make sure that all your settings are up to date and look for your updates. So again, I'm just going to click on the home button, and down here in the corner, you've got a settings cog. And when you click on that, you get all the different options up here. So your network, as I was saying, you want to make sure that your board is connected to the Wi-Fi. If your board isn't connected to the Wi-Fi, you won't get updates. You won't be able to go on the browser or do anything like that. So to make sure that your Wi-Fi is turned on and that you are connected, and for when you're screen sharing, that you would have your device connected to the same network also. And then we'll look at our smart cloud. So that's working away. That's basically the cloud storage for the board. The wallpapers. So these are random wallpapers that are on my USB key, and you can choose whatever background you want to set it to, just to customize it. It shows it's your board. And our launcher. So these are the things that we are using for screen share, browser, notebook, that they're all turned on. Generally, they're all turned on by default, But if you ever found that maybe your browser wasn't working or that your screen share wasn't working, just go into your settings and into your launcher and make sure that it is actually selected and turned on. So you'll see here as well in the next application setting is Smart Whiteboard. So in this, you want to make sure that your library is turned on and that your whiteboards are saved indefinitely, because if you change the save settings on it after you create a board or do any of the writing like I was doing, if you don't save it, it's gone. There is no like recycle bin. The next one is the screen share settings, and you'll see here I've got them all turned on: Google Cast, AirPlay, Miracast, everything. And I have the permission turned off for the sake of this, but I would normally have the permission turned on, which would mean basically that no one could just automatically cast any content that they wanted to the board without permission, which would be probably a bit more of an issue in the older classes. Next is just your date, your time, and your language. They're all pretty standard. But down the very, very bottom, you have the software update. So for the software update, you just literally check for updates now. You're up to date. So if you're checking for the updates, it just makes sure that everything is running smoothly. If there is any glitches or if there's any new features, that you will get them like that as well. So I think I actually have a couple of minutes left. So I'm going to go back and show you how to do the shout it out. So to get to the shout it out, we are just going to go into a new whiteboard. And once we're in the new whiteboard, you need, yeah, perfect. So I know there was a question there that someone was just looking how to share from the board. So that's kind of similar to the shout it out. So I'll kind of go through that first, and then I'll show you the shout it out. So to share from the board, once you're in your whiteboard, up here on the top, you can see your sharing settings. So there's little people, and you can see that Mark is still logged in as a guest. So if you want to share, and I can delete as well people off the list as well through the edit button. If I wanted to share, I have to click start sharing, and the kids literally you just click on this button, start sharing, and the kids go on to hellosmart.com. So it's www.hellosmart.com, and once they're in it, they need to type in the code that came up on the top of the board. So I'm still within the same session, so the big Hello Smart won't come up across here again, but you'll still get the number up here. So I'm going to join again, and you'll see here my name will pop up in a second. So 2 little people, start sharing. Kids go on to hellosmart.com. They don't need to download it, just go on to it through their Chrome or their Safari browser, and they say join as a guest, and they type in that code. Each classroom will have their own, each board will have their own individual code, and each session might populate a new code as well. So if they have previously logged in, they will need to re-log into the board again if it is a new session. So you can see here on my tablet, it is actually mirroring what's on the board at the minute. And if I wanted to then create a shout it out, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier, when I go to add a new page, I can just add a blank page, but right beside it, there's this thing called shout it out. So start for class. And you might say to the kids, okay, I want you to think of 3 different things that you know about dogs. I'm going really basic now because my brain from junior intensive is that low now today. So they might type in, again, juniors mightn't be typing, but they can try tails, and you'll see they send the response, and it pops up and Mark has replied they woof. So you can see, and as they are cute, and they have walks, whatever it is you want to put up, my brain isn't working. And they'll all just, mine is called Jake, things like that. And you can see Mark has thrown up loads of different ideas on the board. And it's a really nice idea if you want to do a whole class activity, whether they were sharing devices in a group or had their own individual ones. So to go over that again, because I know there is a few steps, because you need the boards to be kind of on track and you need the tablet to be on track. And thanks to the backup there as well, Mark. You go to the 2 sharing people over here, and I'm going to stop sharing for a second. You go to the 2 people, you click start sharing. from now on, once the kids connect, whatever is on the board will be available on their computer or their tablet or their phone. So then they go onto hellosmart.com, they type in your class code, and then whether you have chosen teacher-led or student-led, they'll either see exactly what you have on the board or they can go through all the different pages. If you have an activity, like I was saying, like the manipulatives, where you want the kids to physically manipulate things themselves, you will need to turn that into, by clicking the sharing button, turn it into an individual handout, because otherwise they'll only be able to view it. They won't actually be able to, won't convert into a handout. And you can see here then whatever is on the board. I can start. And then the manipulative will pop up here then in a second. So I think, is it coming off me? Oops, something went wrong. Of course it did. So I might jump to Breed now and see if there was any questions, if anyone wanted me to go over, or I'll give you a minute or two if there was something you wanted me to go back over again, or something that you wanted to know that I didn't show. Pop a question there into the chat really quick and Breed will shout it back to me.
So there's just a really easy link that we've been thrown in by Mark there on how to, a recap on how to share from your iPad.
Oh, brilliant.
Really handy.
Yeah, so in the chat function there, Mark has actually put in a link on how to share from the iPad. So that'll be handy to go over. It's one of those things that I don't think, unless you have it in your hands, there's a lot of different steps to it. But the main thing is that the sharing feature, the sharing is turned on. The kids go to hellosmart.com and they type in the class code. The class code basically makes sure that like they're not running on someone else's board or anything, or someone else's session. I don't know if we have any more questions, or if you do, I'll pop back in.
If you wanted to, if you're searching your files again, could you just recap on that?
So if you wanted to go into your files down here, it just comes up on the home screen. And from here, you get the options to look at your SLS, so that's your Smart Learning Suite files, your board files, or your USB files. If I was to take out the USB, that function will go away. My Smart Learning Suite files, these are all the ones that you can make online, as opposed to the ones that I would have made on the board as I was kind of teaching during the day. With the Smart Learning Suite files as well, if there's any file you actually have made on Notebook on your computer, you can upload it to the Smart Learning Suite, and then you have access to it once you log in on your board. So you can see they're just organized by date, whereas my board files, I have created files to store them a little bit more organized, and you can rename the folders. And like when you go into it, then you'll see there's content inside it, or in my maths and things like that. There's stuff saved inside them. So
another question just coming here. Does the iPad screen sharing if you're in landscape, or is it just in portrait?
So for the screen share, if we pull it up.
Both. Yeah.
Both, yeah. I didn't even think of that, to be honest. So yeah, but you'd want to make sure that your auto orientation is switched on your tablet, because obviously it won't if you don't. And for the files as well, with the USB files, they will just be saved by date, and the board files will be saved when you write anything on the board, or you create a new whiteboard, it automatically saves. So if you were doing our news or you're doing anything at all, you don't actually have to save it. It will auto save to the board. And the same when we were in the browser, or when we annotated over the browser, annotated over the screenshots or the visualizer, they automatically save. And then it is worthwhile, when you do open your board files, reorganizing them by just holding them down and dragging them into the files, because it will just get really populated really quick. Have we any more?
No, that seems to be, yeah.
If anyone does have any any other further questions or anything that they would like to share with me that they've done, or even with their class and things like that, I would love if my Twitter handle will come up. So I'm at MJ Shine, and to share anything that you're doing as well. And if you want to come across anything on Twitter, the hashtags at Smart Tech will give you the Smart Twitter account for the actual smart technologies. And again, hashtag Smart Champion would be the hashtag to search for on Twitter if there was anything you did want to share or anything that you wanted to look for yourself. So as I said, if you do have any other questions, write to me on Twitter and I'll be happy to help. And thanks so much for taking your time out on a very dark Wednesday evening in the middle of December. And hopefully we'll see you in the new year. So have a Merry Christmas and stay safe, guys. Thanks a million.
Thanks, Melissa. And Melissa, just before we finish, on behalf of the 4 education centres, Tralee, Clare, Monaghan and Navan, I'd like to thank you and Bree there in the background. I know Mark was helping as well from Smart. So just to remind people, guys, I'm about to end the webinar. We have now linked our evaluations with our certs of attendance, okay? So you will need to fill out the evaluation that will pop up on your screen if you want to receive a cert of attendance for attending today's webinar. So I've also popped it into the chat function there, and I'm going to pop it in there again as we speak. So if you fill out that, it will redirect you then to a Google form, which you fill out, and that will automatically send you your cert of attendance for attending this evening's webinar. So thanks to everybody for attending, and thanks to Melissa and Breed and to Mark in the background also. And hopefully you all have a lovely, happy, safe Christmas, and hopefully we'll see you back in the new year for some more training.